All right, let's dive into a really powerful framework. This is for all the conscious entrepreneurs out there who feel this disconnect between their deep inner awareness and the day-to-day grind of running a business. We're going to break down why that happens and look at a real structured path to bring those two worlds back together. So, does this question kind of hit home for you? Because for a lot of intuitive founders, creators, and coaches, this is a constant struggle. You have these huge personal insights, these aha moments, but then you try to fit them into a business plan and it just falls flat. It creates this frustrating gap between what you know to be true inside and what you're doing on the outside. And honestly, living in that gap is just exhausting. And this table just lays out that conflict so perfectly. Look at this. On one side, you have these profound inner truths, like the realization of no self, where the ego kind of dissolves. But on the other side, your business needs a CEO, a boss, a coherent authority figure. Or you might feel this sense of timelessness, right? But your calendar is just packed with deadlines. It's a fundamental clash of operating systems.
So, what is really going on here? The typical advice is always, oh, just fix your mindset, or you need a better strategy. But that kind of advice totally misses the mark because the problem is so much deeper than that.
And here is the absolute key. This is not a personal failure. It's not that you lack confidence. The real diagnosis is that there's a structural mismatch. Think about it like this. Your inner awareness has grown, it's evolved, but your business structure hasn't caught up. You've basically outgrown the container you built for your work. This quote from Kaia Solene just nails it. When you're operating from that place of deep knowing, if you rush to act or try to fail fast, you can actually trap yourself. You lock yourself into a business model that internally you're already past, and that's the cycle that leads straight to burnout and feeling completely fragmented. Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? Let's turn to this framework that's been developed to address this exact challenge. It's called Living Embodied Presence, or LEP for short. So what in the world is LEP? Well, at its heart, it's a structured way to do inner research. It's about treating your own awareness as a totally reliable scientific instrument. The whole idea is to stop guessing and start systematically observing your own experience with real discipline and rigor. And to be really clear, this is not some vague spiritual idea. LEP is a scientifically coherent method. We're talking about rigorous, first-person research that's designed to unify your inner growth with your outer work. A huge part of it is developing your intuition into a trained capacity, something you can actually rely on, and treating your consciousness as the literal core infrastructure of your business. Okay, so that sounds great in theory, but how does it actually work? How do you use this to bridge that gap we've been talking about between your inner world and your outer actions? Well, it follows a very clear path. It all starts with observation, just looking at your direct, lived experience with precision, and, this is key, without jumping to conclusions. From there, you learn to validate what you're seeing. You learn to tell the difference between old, conditioned thinking and that true, deep, embodied knowing. And finally, all of that leads to integration, where you find a stable way of being that isn't dependent on your job title or how a project turns out. I love this quote because it's such a game changer. Through this process, intuition stops being this weird, mystical thing you can't really trust. Instead, it becomes a trained capacity. It's a reliable tool for pattern recognition that you can actually use to make big decisions in your business and in your life. So you go through this process. What's the end game? What's the big payoff here? Well, it's all about creating a business that is a direct, coherent, and most importantly, sustainable expression of who you really are. And this really highlights the cost of not doing this work. When you're fragmented on the inside, it doesn't just stay inside. It shows up everywhere in your business as a confused strategy, as decisions that don't feel right, and as business models that you just can't keep up with. This is just so crucial to get, especially if you're a solopreneur or running a small team. There is no separation. You can't just wall off your personal state from the business. For better or for worse, your inner state is the company's operating system. So LEP helps you integrate all these different dimensions of yourself. You've got matter, your physical body and sensations. You've got life, your emotions and self-regulation. And you've got mind, your thoughts and reflections. But right there in the center, that's what this framework calls knowing awareness. That's the core of you that can observe everything else And it's the part that brings everything together into a coherent, functioning whole. When you start working this way, it just fundamentally changes your whole perspective on what your business is even for. It stops being this problem you have to solve and becomes something way more profound. So here's the big takeaway. All this inner work, this alignment, this integration, it's not something you have to get done before you can start your real work. This is the work. Your business stops being a problem to be fixed, and instead, it becomes the very practice for your own evolution. And that's the final thought I want to leave you with. This question reframes the entire entrepreneurial journey. It's an invitation to stop wrestling with your business as if it's a series of problems, and instead to see it as a living, breathing expression of the person you are right now in the process of becoming.